Hello, my name is LARAAJI, and I am an interdimensional artist, musician, laughter therapist, living in Harlem, New York, planet Earth, United States of America.
I'm Emily Nam. We are art people.
And it started out with just the basic waking up in the morning, stretching, and laughing. And do this for 7 days, and I started to find my organic laughter. I started to notice my body language. There's a certain body language I feel we all have when we're really into our authentic laughter. The way we touch our face, the way our faces contort, the way our breath moves, the way our body moves. And I found that when I acknowledged this, I could use this to access my laughter in a more immediate way.
LARAAJI is an interdimensional artist, musician, and playful laughter therapist living in Harlem, New York City. Born into the physical world as Edward Larry Gordon in Philadelphia in 1943, he has embarked on a journey of the soul, a vision quest of remembering and discovering. Engaging in music, playing the violin during his school years, his connection to the string instrument has been a lifelong bond, which led him to the auto harp, which he exchanged for his guitar at a pawn shop in New York City, which was in 1969. LARAAJI began to explore the complexities of sound, and in alignment with his mystical discoveries, he has become a pioneer and composer of ambient and new age sounds. LARAAJI is a 7-letter word, including 3 upward-facing triangles and the hieroglyphic Ra, in reference to the ancient Egyptian deity of the sun. LARAAJI's ambient and extrasensory music is both a celebration of community and a space for communication with the non-dimensional world. We discuss the notion of bouncing between dimensions and the presence of holding space while co-creating in the physical plane. In a form similar to a yogic shavasana, LARAAJI creates a sonic environment that invites the body to unlock the abstract self, to enter into unexplored states of rest, allowing space to move and connect with greater ease and peace within ourself. LARAAJI's music and spiritual voice is a tool of service to support the growth and evolution of humanity. He continues to celebrate his connection and evocation of the sun's loving presence and his adoration for orange clothing. Hi, LARAAJI. It's a pleasure to talk with you today. Thank you for being here with me.
It's a unique pleasure, I think. All interviews are new and exploratory.
Let's hope so. I think, that's an interesting way to think about things, is letting things unfold and being in the present. I noticed you're wearing red today. I particularly wore an orange shirt because I felt that orange was your color.
Orange is my color, but in the last minute putting things on, this comes closer to orange. Orange is the sun colors, yes. So when I order things, sometimes they look orange in the on the ad. They come out more red.
Is there a feeling or something about orange that is important for you or that you resonate with?
Associated with fire, sunlight, energy, transformation, energy, creativity. And I have a very intimate rebirth experience with the sun, experiencing the sun as a very loving being, a deep appreciation for sunlight, and as a servant, as a model of service, the sun. And I began wearing the color kind of unconsciously in the late 70s in collaboration with white, thinking that I just liked the color. And I was a street musician in New York City at that time, and playing near Central Park many afternoons or many lunchtimes, having access to the Hare Krishna restaurant that was in their hotel residence there on West 55th Street, Hare Krishna's. They offered all you could eat for $5. Several musicians would show up there around that lunchtime. They had a boutique there filled with orange clothes. One day I passed through the boutique to get to the cafeteria, and I sensed this desire to experiment with wearing orange clothes. And their boutique has some very interesting, creative orange clothing. So I began exploring the wearing of orange clothing without making a connection to why I wanted to do it. I just knew it with an electric, etheric, energizing color. Years later, sharing music at Ananda Ashram, upstate New York, for several years there before the teacher there, Shri Brahmananda Sarasvati, called me aside and gave me a private talk. He was saying, "You've been wearing the colors of sannyas, transformation, colors of initiation. You have had an inner initiation at some point in your life, and it's trying to surface. And you're wearing these colors as a symbol of transformation, sunlight on the new way of knowing self, and sunset on the old way of knowing self. It's a color of service, color of transformation and change." When he gave me that talk, I was impressed that he had picked up on this 1974 deep Nadam sound vision that I had had during my early years of exploratory meditation. And that was the initiation he was referring to, that this sound hearing experience shifted my awareness of the power of music. It shifted my direct experience of the present moment, knowing that here in this moment is the entire omniverse, simultaneous, and that this moment is the only eternity there is. So in 1974, I experienced the nature of eternity and the reality of the simultaneity of everything in the universe. And when I talk about that experience, I remember that it's not to be talked about as if it happened in past tense, because there is no past tense. So here I am. The teacher at Ananda gave me a full set of orange clothes. It said, "I'm not your guru. Your guru is inside you. I'm not your teacher. I'm your mentor. And I am not initiating you. I'm giving you an honorary initiation. I'm honoring an initiation that already took place inside of you and is trying to surface. Now you're on the fast track. Stop walking and crawling and here." So that very moment, I was slightly intimidated. I thought the wearing of orange was a Hindu thing, and that I would be challenged here in the West wearing orange clothing. But I accepted it, and I've been wearing creative oranges since then. And it has given me the platform to explore bringing music forward from a cosmic sense of who I am and what I am. So my music is not just music; it is my infinite voice. It is the voice of my eternal self-knowingness, and the knowingness that everything, everywhere, even the audiences I perform for, at the core of our being, we all remember that we are one.
That's lovely. Thank you for sharing that story. Is there an orange garment or piece of clothing that's of sentimental value to represent that?
Well, I'm continuously letting go of garments and ideas, and but if I said one, it is a scarf that came along with the clothing that this guru presented me. It's a very thick scarf, so I don't get to wear it often, but it's still here, and it allows me to reflect on my connection with his presence in this dimension.
So it's a very profound understanding to have that clarity of your creative practice and its purpose, not only in your own expression, but also to serve others. And could we talk about how that came into being? Because maybe I imagine it wasn't always so clear. And could we start off by sharing, when did you first start meditating, or when did you first start exploring these ideas of oneness and connection?
Gently, I guess it began in Sunday school at a young age, Baptist Church Sunday School. My being exposed to the character referred to as Jesus. I remember being quite quietly impressed with the idea of an individual human openly declaring his oneness with the Supreme Creator. I said, hey, that's cool. I want to do that. And so that would be a declaration that I also wanted to align within the purpose of serving, selfless, impersonal life serving. Throughout my life, even the beginning in grade school, I found myself with this service mentality, this service attitude, doing comedy, playing music that would please others, doing comedy that would bring people out of sense of separation and out of the blues. I also remember chanting to myself, it might have been a poem, where I wanted to evolve and grow up into some kind of service where I would be assisting the youth on the planet to find their purpose and to keep a positive outlook on being alive in the planet. The exposure to the sunlight on one particular sensitive period of my life, sitting in a park in a Grand Army Plaza, Brooklyn, New York, was during a sort of less than a month of being houseless or homeless, of a will. I chose it. I mean, I could have gotten an apartment, but I let go of one apartment, and my marriage at that time was dissolving. And I left an apartment, and before trying to get another apartment, I decided to experiment with living on the subways. It was either fall or spring because it wasn't severe weather. But I remember living on the subway and just interesting discovering that even one subway line from its origin to its destination changes the character of its commuters. And I would observe this, and especially in the morning time when commuters would be getting on, going to work, they had a job, they came from a home which had a refrigerator, and they're going to a job and were receiving paychecks, and they're dressed up neatly. And I felt this contrast of where I was at that moment. And one particular stop on this one train was Grand Army Plaza in Brooklyn. And I remember coming out of the subway system and sitting on a park bench around noontime on a very sunny day, and sitting on the park bench with whatever I was wearing and with whatever I was carrying, and smiling up into the sky, into this warm, nurturing presence of the sun. And I was just soaking in the realization of just how magnificently awesome sun light, sun beings, sun radiance. And here was my most trusted friend, companion, lover, healer. And I received just a deep impression, maybe a re-appreciation of the sun. That I no longer took the sun for granted from that moment on. As I just evolved and grew up from that situation into eventually finding location, reconnecting with the family, disconnecting with the family, moving into another residence, living in the Park Slope, working in a coffee house, living a more of a nomadic lifestyle, playing side music on the sidewalks in New York. That I felt my music was gravitating toward keeping me in an interdimensional place, playing in the earth plane, but referencing or accessing my inspiration from this omniversal cosmic place. And my music was serving listeners, giving listeners a portal or a gateway into another dimension of nowness that allowed them to lift up out of whatever psychological stress, emotional congestion, and just spontaneously by hearing my music would be lifted into this otherness, this etheric, uncongested spaciousness. So here I was serving, and I felt it that it was serving, but people commenting on the music. One of the musical assignments I gave myself was playing freely for yoga studios when I was invited, or playing for psychic fairs. One of them was in Harlem at a place called the Tree of Life, not far from where I'm living now. It was a bookstore on the corner of 125th Street and Lenox Avenue in New York City in Harlem during that time, late 70s, early 80s. And one particular afternoon, after playing music in front of this store while a psychic fair was going on, and a psychic fair, if you don't know, is where the store is open and people in the Harlem community would come in and read books freely, get psychic reading, get a Curlian photography reading, get a horoscope reading. They were exposed to alternative spiritual inspiration. After one or two of these events, two of the men who were like co-facilitators or curators of this event approached me and said, "Edward, you know your music takes us beyond this dimension into other dimensions, and we feel that it suggests to us that you could be interested in performing under a new name. And we've done some research and have come up with a suggestion for a new name for you." At that moment, I think my breath stopped and I said, "Oh, if they reveal a name to me that I don't like, this is going to be an embarrassing situation." I made a plan. I said, "Okay, let's meet at Central Park, one of my favorite parks in the world, tomorrow at a certain time, maybe around Bethesda Fountain in Central Park, New York. We'll meet there and you can reveal the name to me." Now, what they didn't know that already was going on in my seeking mind was a sense of wanting a new name. And I felt the name would be three syllables and would have some reference to the sun. We met in Central Park and they revealed the name to me as LARAAJI. And they explained that hieroglyphics, the Ra was the sun god, and the name actually honored the sun as a divine being who was serving the earth and all the other planets by coming down into the terrestrial plane and lifting people up. And when I heard this, I said, "Wow, what a coinkydink."
Mm.
And they didn't know that I was looking for a three syllable name and that I had an aversion to sunlight. They gave me the name, spelled it out as they were presenting it, and I added one more A in there so that they would have three A's in the name, that when the name is visually presented in uppercase, there would be three equilateral triangles. Intuitively, what I was doing was spelling the name Ra the way it is meant in Egyptian hieroglyphics. So there was LARAAJI, the name, numerological value of 7. And for a minute, I thought if I change my name, it'll start something and I'll start changing it again later on. But I've never really attempted to, although the spiritual teacher at Ananda initiated the last name Nadananda, which evolved into Nada Brahmananda. So LARAAJI, Nada Brahmananda. And there's the story of the name LARAAJI and associated with initiating myself as a servant, doing service, and using the sun as a mentor, as someone who's inspiring my service. on the planet and beyond.
Do you think about past lives or soul expression, that this part of you was already very early on? You've already talked about some parts transforming, that it was wanting to come out, and in this very unique and it feels like synchronous way that it evolved and just came to you through these meeting people and your connection with the sun.
Indeed, Emily. The first instrument I played with gusto was the violin, which was presented to 10th graders or 5th graders in the grade school system of Perth Amboy, New Jersey. I was 10 years of age in the body at that time. And I remember the two teachers on the school system were going from class to class carrying a clarinet, trumpet, and a violin to encourage students to take up music. When the violin was demonstrated, something just leaped out of me automatically. Yes, that's me. And my mother sprang for the cost of violin lessons, and I gave myself to it very, very earnestly. And I played in the school orchestra up through high school. In later years, um, I recount that experience of just automatically gravitating toward a string instrument and wondering that I was picking up that musical instrument from a previous life or picking up stringed instrument practice from a previous life. In the 80s and 90s, playing for New Age conferences around the United States, I would encounter psychics and channels and people who were had clairvoyance or these extrasensory perceptions. And even my teacher at Ananda Ashram would comment that I'm being accompanied by guides, and that they could see my guides. That gave me a sense that there was an interdimensional or an other dimensional aspect to my presence that was guiding me, that is guiding me. Although I didn't claim to see them directly, I did begin putting the pieces together and connecting the dots from my earlier years when I used to perform music live, and someone would approach me and try to hold a conversation in linear language. I found it awkward to switch from where I was during the improvisation and engage in conversation in this earth dimension. So that began making me curious and suspicious about what's going on with me. And I don't doubt that my identification with the Jesus model when we're very young could have alerted some unidentified teachers who probably saw this interest and probably silently or aligned themselves with me in a way that wasn't clear to my grounded, mundane understanding. Well, later years, their mentors did come out of the closet and approach me. And even at that time, I would be asked, they would be teaching me, walking through the park or walking along a college campus and feeding me content that I thought, wow, how did they ever suspect I would be open to that frequency of information and guidance? And then they would disappear from my life and leave me in this mystical, say, wow, what's going on? So I had a suspicion that this physical incarnation is not the beginning nor the ending of who I am and what I'm about.
Was there ever a fear or a doubt, like thinking, oh, this is, everyone else is doing A and I'm gravitating somewhere else, and or were you a type of person that was just very open to exploration, and maybe the climate at the time was very um embracing of transcendence and exploring these other dimensions and ways of being?
Well, aside from the church community, when I did get to Howard University, I remember just immersing myself in the rebellious college life. Here I was away from home, away from the Baptist church. And I remember saying to myself, even if I was talking directly to God, I says, God, I'm going to take a vacation from you and I'm going to go wild here in these years. And I'll reconnect with you later. So, so the 4 years of college, I was with outside of any sense of spiritual constraints. But when I returned into New York and began exploring comedy and music and ran into the holistic movement and ran into spiritual teachers and and I got in touch with mind science, metaphysics that did something that I didn't know was possible. It lifted me out of any residual slave mentality. So my folks were immigrants from the South, and there were mental practices, emotional practices, and physical practices that were carried along with, um, you say, slave mentalities. And I really experienced through mind science affirmations, positive affirmations, meditation, all these spiritual practices that I was being exposed to, lifted me back into a sense of unity with the cosmos, and that the cosmos is my origin, that I'm not essentially a Black American or Negro or colored person. And my music reflected that. My expressions reflected that. My attitude reflected that. And I found myself in this holistic community, of spiritual community, a yogically friendly community, a meditative community, a community that was open to the reality that we we carry the cosmic consciousness within us if we choose to awaken it. So I was moving in this community that was not frowning at me as though I was different, but they were embracing me as someone who's unique and who's awake to their purpose. My biological family, since we grew up in the Baptist church, there was always this acceptance, warm hugs, and friendliness, even though they couldn't comprehend what was driving me. I gave them samples of my music, and they said, "That's nice music," but they haven't beaten the path to come to my concerts or buy my records, or haven't really formed the correct questions like you are of, what are you doing? Where'd you get this inspiration? You feel like you've had a brain shift. How did that happen? So, but I am, to answer your question, I feel that since my coming into New York and finding my spiritual tribe, that I've always been embraced in and moving within a receptive community that doesn't try to block or repress my rather otherworldly expressions.
Which I think is very important to have the support, the emotional support to explore, and as you say, block is a very
Yes.
vital access point, which I think then comes to your music and its function of transcending and opening up space for others to find that experience.
Yes. Along that, I can equate to what I'm doing with the psychology of being a genius, and maybe like Albert Einstein or any prodigy, that one feels their uniqueness, which is an aloneness, and how to feel comfortable, emotionally secure, safe in that uniqueness, that aloneness. Well, in the spiritual sense, the sense of belonging within a cosmic family, the aloneness is not disturbing. And sitting, playing in Central Park for many years alone, picking up my equipment, packing up and counting my money and going to have a meal somewhere, the aloneness never became an issue, a problem. Um, and to this day, the nomadic aloneness element is present, and I accept it as a gift in that I'm able to manage it due to meditation, which is a form of therapy. Meditation is to come out of all the titles, names, and classifications and sit with the singular I am. And in that place, the I am doesn't belong to any particular religion or tribe. The idea of aloneness is really cosmically all pervading. So I give up the separatist kind of community in order to have the infinite unified field as my family. I can move in the world of separation without needing to cling to othernesses or being valued by othernesses. I appreciate it. It's good to know, but it doesn't disturb me to feel any rejection or to feel that I'm not being in the human family with seeking after human goals the way other people are, getting a job, having a home, having a normal family, and having a car. Um, so alone in the way that I'm walking and doing my life, that I haven't felt the need to avoid rejection. And I feel psychologically safe and secure, healthy is probably what I'm saying. I feel healthy and not needing the validation of the world, or although the music I have channeled is obviously well received and it's a good feeling. It's like feeling that the gift is being received is a completion of the gift giving.
I think I just wanted to say a healthy sense of self, I think is it sounds like that's what you're describing, which is very very it's important to feel safe in the world. And I just wanted to talk about your performances do have a lot of people and you do have a following, and do you feel that it's just a moment of being present and being with the people in that room and in that space? It's not about audiences and numbers. And how do you feel in those moments?
Am feeling more and more interdimensional, that I'm not just in the body playing for an audience of 250 or 500 bodies, but I'm also conscious of and as this unified field, and I'm holding space for the invisible beings who are present, invisible presences, and for the presence that is right now anywhere in the universe, whether on Alpha Centauri or Sirius, that I'm not just there for the human bodies in the room. If I was, my music would be more bluesy and rock and support them in having another beer. But I believe I am present with their inner core nature, which transcends the dimensionality of the venue. And my observation is that audiences feel that. It's demonstrated in the silence that usually follows my performance, a sense of silence pervading the audience whether it's in a big dance hall in Brooklyn or it's in a big theater in Paris. That silence is that the individuals are connected to their non-dimensional self or their higher dimensional self, for which they are not prepared to give verbal expression.
I'm thinking about, and I may not be able to describe this, it's sort of an abstract thought, but the complex harmonic structures of the music that you make. And then you're talking about this aloneness. There's no single note. It's a very interconnected sound that you're creating. And the sounds that you create are to do with the relationships to the sounds of each other. And it mirrors, in a way, the interconnectedness of humanity. And I wonder if that replication of some kind of energetic force is what can power the transformation and the silence that you're talking about in that experience of being present with your music.
Yes, that what you're saying really points to the 1974 sound hearing experience, the meditation of hearing the cosmic sound, which activated in me, which I believe is in everyone, activated a dormant cosmic self memory. And when that memory comes up, what comes up with it is the faculty of the cosmic self. The faculty is an all-pervading field, is my faculty. And when I bring that faculty or activate that faculty in a listener, um, the sense of the now becomes the dominant. And the nowness is complete. And the music that this is inspired by, this memory activation, is that each moment is whole. Each moment, the cosmos is whole. So that the music doesn't have an ending or a beginning. And that the note I played before is not disconnected from the note I'm going to play tomorrow. That it's all the same sound, it's all the same message. On the sense of needing to start a performance and to end a performance is not my goal, but to bring forth the sound of a continuous consciousness experience, that we are a continuum. We don't have a beginning or an ending. We might have entered a body and may leave the body, but the consciousness is an eternal continuum, something that we can't think into validation. But not only the music I channel, but the messages of fellow visionaries is to activate this dormant memory where we remember that we don't have a beginning and an ending. And so the music that I play, as you said, suggests that there's no separation between any notes, that it's all happening within a whole continuous consciousness field. These questions you're asking are evolving me into expression, and I'm very grateful for this level of questioning.
You're welcome. Thank you for responding. I think I'm thinking about, let's say someone, because everyone is where they are in their life, and they come to your performance and then maybe not as aware of things outside of themselves or within themselves, and then they leave and carry that experience with them, and then maybe it shuts off again. And can you talk about those moments where it can come alive again, and in other parts of your life it's come alive, like maybe when you've discovered your instrument, or maybe something happened and those markers that made some kind of resonance with that feeling?
Yes, that is a classic area that I've heard addressed by other visionaries and channels, is that at every nanosecond, even while we're holding this meeting, that we bounce in and out of this cosmic space, from this cosmic space back into this linear plane. But we don't have, where those who don't have the language in place to hold a space, forget it. It's like waking up from a dream and not having the technique to remember the dream. That we are constantly bouncing in and out of this cosmic space. How can we not, since this is our origin and the space is here? The music that I attempt to channel and the teachings that teachers do, and yoga practices and Tai Chi and chanting mantras and reading mystical readings, books, are for the purpose of giving each of us a tool for holding on to this invisible, inarticulable self that is always here. And usually the practice is quieting the thinking mind long enough to have this place that we're always in become obvious to us. Uh, a good example is your yoga classes. If you're familiar with yoga, any form of yoga, usually runs about an hour and 10 minutes, closing with something that's called shavasana, or a corpse pose, where the student is lying flat on their back and their emotional body is relaxed, their breath is relaxed, their mind is relaxed from overthinking, either because the teacher has fed them some quotes from the spiritual teacher or have played the right music. So the student is lying flat on their back and they're in a place of least resistance to observing this place that we all are bouncing in and out of. And they see, feel, and touch this magical, mystical meditation, if you want to call it, cosmic now. And it's not something that comes to us, it's something that's always here. And our practice is to practice of how to not leave, how to stop leaving, how to stop getting on the vehicles of thinking that cause us to miss the present. And so my understanding this is that when I come into an audience or come to a yoga class to play music, that one of my functions is to give the listener or the student or the audience an opportunity to postpone leaving, how to postpone getting on the vehicle that takes us into the past or the future, so that the now can show up all over our operating awareness. I'm suspicious that there are certain substances floating around our community on the planet that allow unsuspecting seekers to have this experience, to postpone the sense of past and future, and to find themselves immersed in a bodiless state, whether it's LSD, whether it's peyote, whether it's ayahuasca or good herb or chanting practice or whatever, an austerity that causes the thinking mind to take a vacation so that what's always here shows up in our prepared and ready to receive awareness. It could be drone music. It could be taking an ice plunge. It could be love. It could be serving, anything that gets us out of our personal sense of self so that the impersonal field of our being shows up in our operating awareness.
I think that's really interesting. You talk about that kind of bouncing between that space. It's like a contraction and an expansion. Or
Mhm.
I thought about it's a difference between fear and curiosity. Is the challenge to hold that space within the world and the present moment that we live today? Or do you feel that it's the intention is to just transcend and to be gone?
My feeling is that we're supposed to get a hold of that feeling, nurture it, and base our default sense of who we are as that field. I'm saying as it rather than in it, because that field is non-dimensional or fifth dimensional. And working with that kind of dimensionality, we're not in linear. So the goal or the ideal would be to plant myself as this and move in the world, not to leave it behind, but to be able to move in the world grounded as, in my case, an interdimensional operator. And so that the narratives that are floating in the world at any particular time don't pull us out of whack and pull us out of alignment. Specifically, the kind of narratives that said, the world's going to end, you're a sinner, and you're going to be destroyed in the next, and the planet Nibiru is coming and is going to shake up the planet, and you're going to be destroyed. The holding on to this inner self is giving us the credentials and the power to know that we aren't that you that the outer narrative is pointing to, that we're not supposed to get upset and shaken up and immersed in fear and doom, because our goal is not the future and our truth is not the past. When we know that we are this eternal now continuum. And to address your question again, that I haven't felt that it's my role to connect to God and divinity and that they get the hell out of this planet. No, it's to, instead of cursing the darkness, is a light a candle. So my role is to know who I am. And I say, know the truth, and the truth shall set me free. But also practice the truth, and the truth shall keep me free, even while I am walking in the earth plane. So, addressing what I think is your question, no, it's not my goal to hurry up and get out of here, but to hurry up and know who I am so that wherever I am, I can walk with spiritual confidence and a sense of connectedness to a divine, loving, compassionate, creative, healing purpose.
Mm. It's the self-realization, and I think there's a lot of conditioning to escape the self, but actually the self is where the nourishment holds its power and freedom.
You talk like you know what you're talking about.
I'm responding. Well, I'm on my own journey, and I'm really thinking about, there's it's a story in philosophy of know thyself, and I've really been thinking about that a lot recently. It's difficult to know yourself amongst a world of other people and projections and your own projections and assumptions, and it takes a
Yes,
lot of work to bring down and center into that. And I think once you do center, it's very safe, and it's the safest place to be. And um, yeah, that's just something I am finding great reassurance in at the moment. And
good.
my own freedom of there's less suffering within myself, which I think is where a lot of suffering in humanity comes from.
Suffering is an interesting word because it even refers to people who don't know they're suffering.
Mm.
And the teachers are saying we don't know we're suffering because we're not aware of what we do have access to. Basically, something called bliss, ananda. If your life is not centered in bliss right now, that we are suffering, even though we can numb it out or cover it over or get involved with distractions. And to the degree that we don't call it suffering, for sitting on a yacht, um, we don't know that it's suffering until we notice that the engine is out and the boat is sinking and there are sharks are on the boat. and suddenly we're suffering on what was the bliss. But the suffering is a word, it keeps coming up in the, the narrative of all spiritual teachers to help the world, to lift them out of suffering. And not just feeding them food, not just giving them a good massage, but it's helping them to, um, as I say, you don't feed, you give some man a fish and you feed them for a day. Teach them how to fish and you feed them for life. Is that to lift someone out of suffering is not to give them a sandwich for a day, but to teach them how to, like you say, go in and find your inner nurturing fountain so that you can feed yourself out of suffering for life.
Mm.
Know thyself. And it's interesting in this instant that we're holding this conversation, as you say, it's difficult to find that place when that place is right here. And that looking for it in the world, they're looking for truth in all the wrong places. Is looking for it in the dimensional, in the third and fourth dimensional field. It's hopeful. When one goes to a conference, a retreat, goes to Costa Rica, goes to Himalayas, I'm going to sit with a teacher and he's going to show me the way. Well, the teacher, if they're good, they're going to show you what was already there before you started the journey. So the the thing you want to travel with, if you're looking for truth, is travel with discipline, and travel with a practice. That a teacher can show you a practice or model the effects of a good practice. But somewhere along the way, I have to make up the mind, I'm going to practice. Or something has to strike us in such a way as if, hey, it's time for me to practice. And the moment I open up and become receptive to finding a practice, I have a feeling the practice is going to open up and find me. So the search is not for the truth. I think the search is for my practice that allows me to be still and let the truth find me.
And so you found your practice in your creative practice and really an anchor to your life through music and an instrument. And how could you talk about how you approach um, making sounds? Do you channel and improvise, or do you have a ritual for approaching your compositions? Is there something, a system that generates this space for you?
Yes, what started out as sitting and intending to be in meditation and to bring the meditation resonance into the creative process, as now is I walk in it, I sleep in it, as it. It's like riding, learning to ride a bicycle. In the beginning stages, you intend to ride, you intend to stay balanced. Somewhere along the way, it's intuitive and it's in your makeup. So the practice, say for instance, of recording or performing, in the case of performing, backstage or in the early part of the day, there's a practice of aligning, which meaning either doing Tai Chi like movement, or dancing the five rhythms, doing meditative movement, doing conscious affirmations to be sure that my mental state is aligned so that I am not going out to play the blues and make people happy, but that I am going to give validation to an already pre-existing spiritual presence where everyone is. And I do a practice to be sure that I'm aligned, to be sure that I'm in the best, finest alignment, especially with touring. There are aspects of touring, being on the road, catching an airplane, waiting for an Uber, managing your equipment, getting it onto load in setting up, doing sound check, and conversing with the sound people, that there's a lot of opportunity to be slightly out of alignment in order to be clear and conduct conversation in the mundane field. And so when it's time to perform, I have to be sure that I've gotten into the finest alignment. Um, that practice, I would think that every artist, every practitioner has found their best alignment practice. Sitting still, doing affirmations, reading from quotes from your favorite teacher, or holding a picture of your teacher in front of you, which I don't feel is my style, since I'm working on the interdimensional level where the field is invisible, it's non-dimensional. And to have a dimensional picture in front of me is not my favorite direction. The sound of music, I can just pluck a note when I'm ready. And what's revealed to me is just spontaneously free associating within this expanded sense of now. It's free associating within this non dimensionality. And the physical human being is eavesdropping in on my rapport. And what they're doing without knowing it is that they're eavesdropping in on my rapport with their own inner non dimensional space. And as the concert, the performance unfolds, the amount of inner non dimensional content in the audience's awareness is expanding in relationship in the contrast to their memory of themselves being a human body with a human address and with a cell phone in their pocket. So my practice of aligning is dancing backstage, getting in touch with the five rhythms, if you don't know about it, doing affirmations to remind myself I'm not just a body, and that everything I need in order to channel the right performance is already here. So it's positive self-talk, affirmations, and channeling backstage. I can channel guidance. That channeling is, to me, if not the highest form of alignment, because channeling is actually allowing a higher dimensionality to confirm its presence where I am. So it confirms my interdimensional character. So already I am operating beyond time and in time, beyond location and in the location, beyond the body and in the body. The challenge here, at times, I thought there was a challenge, that it would create confusion. However, sound and music seems to be the kind of language that can bypass confusion. I don't have to talk and say, I'm going to do an interdimensional concert for you, and you're going to be transported into your extra dimensional body. Now, if I'm using these words, I am creating a resistance in that listener to where it is I'm intending to allow them to be. So, non dimensional or non verbal communication so far seems to be the way of successful transmitting and communication. So before a performance, before recording, it's up to me to be sure that I am okay with nonverbal self-awareness and giving projection and representation of this side. Even right now, and as we're holding this meeting, I am aware that a non-dimensional or non-verbal field is permeating our sitting here at the riverside.
Oh, call it visceral listening, because if you are talking about these interdimensional experiences, then the physical senses of taste, listening, sight are not where that communication is being received. And so how is that connected through the bodies, or how do you have a thought about how people are experiencing your music?
Yes, uh, that thought is different depending on the audience for whom I'm playing. In the spiritual community, when I say spiritual, people who are investigating their spiritual side, whether they're meditators or they're a community attending a New Age conference or convention, my sense is that they're already open to being in the presence of the non-dimensional, non-verbal space, and they have been prepared to relax and not hurry up and get away from it, not spooked out by it. That I depend upon this space, I relate to it, and my findings are that the community that's receptive to it, there's little or no resistance, and I don't have to stress about it. I don't have to really talk even about it. I can just show up and let the music flow, and there's an obvious acceptance of the nonverbal place, and the receivers are already practiced in the shavasana posture or the internal witnessing place, or they're into still contemplation or sitting in yoga postures and just being with the breath. They're comfortable with sustained present time. Now, the other audiences, especially with Europe, when I travel, sometimes I find myself I'm playing inside of a pub where people are standing up holding beers. But it still works because the essence of the communication is already where they are. In fact, they're the venue in New York that I played for, and they weren't too interested in having me back because the people weren't buying drinks when I was performing. So my thought is that the message or the substance of my communication is already everywhere in the universe, and I can show up, and if my practice is aligned, and I can share interdimensional awareness, it'll uh, touch the observing people, even touch animals. I've had people report on their cats responding to the music over the radio station. So the product that I am selling is already everywhere. I don't have to bring it anywhere. It's lightweight, compact, portable. And my thoughts is that my job is to use music to relax the audience to a place where they're coming into corpse pose near shavasana without them even knowing that that's what's going on. But suddenly they're in a place where there's minimal resistance to being aware that where they are, there's an eternalness in progress. There is a non-dimensional unified field operating right where they are through them if they are receptive enough to accept themselves as a channel. So I would say that what I'm observing in myself saying that my music really initiates people to being a tandem space holder for the non-dimensional.
Do you think about frequency and how the frequency of sound affects the body? Is that something you inquire about, or it's...
I do. Very seriously, one of several different subjects come up on that, and the frequency of 440 hertz. Is that something you've ever heard about?
Mhm.
As opposed to 432 hertz or other frequencies. So supposedly 440 hertz was decided upon as a planetary frequency within which music of the planet would evolve: social music, pop music, classical music, and the Rockefellers might have something to do with it. It might have happened in Germany, some kind of convention or conference to make 440 the standard. The thoughts that are coming up around it is that that particular frequency is generating a sense of personal property, separation, and ego of mine, ownership, proprietorship, as opposed to 432 and possibly other alternative frequencies, open the listener up to a sense of universal harmony and maybe being in harmony with the earth, namely the Schumann resonance. Though my thoughts are guiding me to experiment with. I've experimented with 432 against 440, and I'm not sure what I'm experiencing. I can go on the internet and find people who have generously created a YouTube track where they're playing Bach in 440 and then they're playing Bach at 432 so that you can bounce back and forth and to see if you are feeling any difference. And I've done that kind of research and I'm still not clear. So my thought is still open to any more input. I also observe that tuning my zither to pentatonic 5 notes prepares the instrument to be the least troublesome tuning when I'm performing anywhere on the planet. It's the tuning that allows the audience to drift into safety, a sense of security. It's 5 notes, so that's less information than the 7 note scale. And if pentatonic is very familiar in the East, the Oriental or the Asian community, that the frequency of pentatonic music seems to me more calming. When I want to function as a musician who's going to calm an audience before a lecture, I'll think in terms of using pentatonic tuning. If I'm playing for a deliberate meditative audience, I'll think in terms of minor, more of a feminine, receptive mode. And it allows me to experiment with transmitting oceanic water, feminine energy to support a meditation, an openness to the meditative ethereal field. When I'm playing a music for more of an inspirational, bright, uplifting, positive, celebrative purpose, I'll think major mode, which allows me to be in a dance, celebration, happy, positive, uplifting outlook. So it's to that degree I think about it in order to prepare for whatever function I'm being asked to serve.
Do you make changes in production as well, like digitally changing frequencies, or it generally comes through from the instruments?
I don't change tunings in midstream. However, generally, a concert, I'll flow between two, one meditative into celebrative. And it still keeps the focus of holding a space for the cosmic dimension while honoring the need for the body to move and groove. So celebrating, whether it's playing for a wedding party or playing for a dance movement class. However, I will always hold space for the cosmic and acknowledge that it's fun to move the body and to generate the body. I do acknowledge that I have a love for waltz tempos, waltzes, and especially on the piano, playing a waltz. 4/4 rhythms are good for moving the body. 6/8 rhythms are good also for moving the body. And then 8 arrhythmical is a way for releasing the body from into chaos so that you're not following any linear pattern. Thank you for that question, Emily.
Thank you. Can we talk about laughter as a movement practice?
Yeah, I love to hear people use the word laughter.
Laughter.
Laughter. You're laughing at me. That's one of the warning signs, red flags when I was doing comedy or being funny in a social situation is to have somebody say, "Are you laughing at me?" That means I should hold back. And laughter. I've always forgot the question. What was the question?
Well, we were talking about movement practice, and I think laughter involves movement of air.
Yes.
And you have a very beautiful laughter practice that I would be really interested to hear about its origins and also its relationship to your music.
Yes. Laughter softens the human body, releases rigidity that comes from tension and anxiety. So in the early years, I would use jokes and antics to relax a friend or family members from rigidity or from congestion as a service. And the practice of doing comedy was fun until I realized when I was overlapping my stand up comedy practice with the study of metaphysics and becoming clearer about the impact of our verbal and mental practices. If they're unconscious, we could be programming ourselves or holding programs that are not really working for us. In the metaphysical study, it's understanding you're going above the physical, which means coming into the unified field of oneness. The room for comedy had shifted because comedy that I was doing was polarizing. It was laughing at the expense of some other person, a less fortunate person or situation. So there was some discomfort about continuing that kind of laughter campaign when I was getting more into metaphysical study. So at some point in the 70s, I abandoned stand up comedy because I felt it was in conflict with what I was learning in metaphysical studies. My practice with music took me into the community that embraced metaphysics and meditation. And along the way, I learned of teachers. One of the teachers was Shri Bhagwan Rajneesh. Have you ever heard that name?
No.
Osho?
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, Osho. Very um, non conventional spiritual inspiration. He didn't write books. I understood that his students would take dictations and then publish them. One of the publishings was a book called The Orange Book of Meditations by the students of Osho. And one of the pages in the book was a page on laughter meditation. I read the book, I read Laughter Meditation, and I said, wow, I've never thought of waking up in the morning and just laughing while lying down with my eyes closed. And I tried it for 7 days, and I was hooked on it. I said, hey, I've got something here. And I began sharing it in the context of my healing sound workshops at these New Age conferences. And the laughter work took on a form all its own. And it started out with just the basic waking up in the morning, stretching, and laughing. And do this for 7 days, and I started to find my organic laughter. I started to notice my body language. There's a certain body language I feel we all have when we're really into our authentic laughter. The way we touch our face, the way our faces contort, the way our breath moves, the way our body moves. And I found that when I acknowledged this, I could use this to access my laughter in a more immediate way. But as the workshop opened up and became from a 5 minute piece to an hour and a half immersion, that we use laughter to open up the pituitary pineal gland, the thyroid, the thymus, the abdominal organs, the lungs. So it becomes an internal journey. And what happens is that our laughter starts to take on another character, that we're no longer just laughing at the cause of an outer effect, but we are intending our laughter as a therapy, as a yoga, of a unifying with our body through our laughter. What wakes up is the immune system. The abdominal organs get a massage. The thyroid gets vibrated. The thymus and the pituitary hormones get to flow more smoothly. And so that our natural laughter, if we practice it enough, our natural laughter in public places contains a different kind of content, a content of open breathing, of joy, of a happy physical system, hopefully.
Mm. A very good laugh feels incredible. And I've never really thought about the physiological and spiritual connection to laughing
Mm.
until thinking about your work and how you approach it. And I like this idea of doing it over 7 days because I feel you do need to stretch that muscle and move the body and let it get out in the way that it needs to. And it takes a while to kind of, reconnect with those movements and those joys as well. It's a joyful experience
I
that
agree
isn't
with you.
engaged with. Yeah.
Yeah, it is work. It takes a while to work with it because it is work. And you could even say it's stressful to laugh on cue. But to do it I tried it for 70 minutes once, and I learned that the laughter evolves over 70 minutes, that it's not just hee hee ha ha ho ho, and it's not just laughter, it's euphoria, it's bliss, it's celebration, and it's breath yoga, it's breath meditation. You get into a fineness of what laughter is. It doesn't have to be, like I said, ha ha ho. You get in, and you're given the license to be creative in how you bring forth that intention, and the body gets the benefit of it all. Celebration, joy, euphoria, ecstasy.
How do you maintain presence when doing that practice? I can imagine if you were thinking about something funny, you're kind of taking yourself out of the physical experience. So is it really about responding to the physical bounce of laughter, which kind of then catches on with it? It's a contagious movement.
That is an insightful question, inciting me to say this that in the workshop, I bring my comedic skills forward, but they're not necessarily what drives the laughter. I get the participants up and moving and practicing on themselves of targeting these areas of the body, so that we can at will bring our breath and our laughter, and the physical vibration and the positive psychological presence of our laughing voice, to target the pituitary in the brain, to laugh the brain, in the throat, the thyroid, So along this journey, natural laughter erupts because on some level it feels silly, and on another level, our inner child comes forward and says, "Hey, I want to play along with this too." And we all know the inner child laughs more readily than the outer adult. So the workshop, or the play shop as I like to call it now, welcomes the inner child spirit, which automatically empowers us to give ourselves to laughter more readily during these what would seem ridiculous inner exercises. Laughing the abdominal organ. And when we're doing it in a community of a play shop, we feed off each other. So the outer visual of us all doing this And the warmth of the community with this positive purpose and a spiritual atmosphere gives us to really bubbly therapeutic laughter while still giving this inner focus a chance to breathe through us, inner laughter.
Breathing through is a nice thought or image to have.
Yeah. Mm. We could debate or argue that this kind of is anti-yogic. That it may shock the system as opposed to a ah, ah, ah. So these kind of findings come to me as I evolve the practice, and hopefully they come to all the students or the practitioners, that we move away from the hard outer image of what laughter is supposed to be, authentic laughter, real laughter, laughter that comes as effect of an outer cause, to internal yogically centric laughter. To work on ourselves with laughter. I use the model of running. To get up and run for no purpose at all might look strange, but to jog around the reservoir in Central Park for cardiovascular reasons, then the jogging takes on an inner justification. So that's where we're going with laughter. Laughter to take on an inner justification. Why are you laughing like that? There's nothing funny out here. There is something funny out here. You, but no. that that's to say, then in my field of laughter, I find that people with a sense of humor sometimes are not as funny as people with a sense of seriousness. And people, people in their sense of seriousness can be extremely funny. In fact, I think good comedians know how to capitalize on that. They know how to look serious at something that looks funny to others.
What you're talking about is laughter as a very joyful internal experience as opposed to a banter or trying to evoke laughter in someone through a joke.
Mm-hmm. It's always fun to tell a good joke in a social situation. I have a vocabulary of jokes that I can bring out of the closet. In the play shop, though, I'm focusing on letting people feel empowered to bring their authentic laughter forward. It's called laughter self-esteem, how to build up the self-esteem for something that you know you love to do, laughter, how to own it, how to be with it, how to laugh sooner in public places when you know something is funny, whether it's the theater, Broadway, um, or a movie.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you have any insight on, or do you have any thoughts on how, from having this idea of thinking about laughter and then creating these large workshops and making music and finding a stringed instrument to creating these very powerful compositions, what choices or how did you make choices or how did you follow that pathway of learning and understanding who you are to allow the development to occur and the discovery to occur?
It's the word comes to mind, vision quest, that I accept that I've been on a vision quest without knowing it or articulating it from a very young physical age. That being on the quest, mentors, um, anonymous mentors see this and feed me, whether they're teachers in the classroom or guest lectures at a conference who will see this in me, this person's seeking for their vision, they're seeking for their direction, they're seeking for a clarification of their purpose. And they'll suggest books or suggest teachers or suggest practices. And in my earnestness, I'll investigate that practice or investigate that teacher or buy that book. And along the way, I'm like connecting the dots, and the teachers are putting together this picture of an abstract destination. And somewhere along the way, someone will give me the key to opening the door into the abstract dimension, and then boom, then I start running because, oh, this is what they're talking about. And when they open that door into the abstract and get comfortable with the abstract self, the invisible self, the weightless self, hopefully you're comfortable with it because you've been prepared. You've heard words about you're not the body, you're not the thinking mind, and that when the body dies, you remain. So you hear all these things, and it sounds abstract. But once the door opens into the abstract for yourself, and you see it and live it for yourself, and you walk it, and just like any practice, sewing, crocheting, bowling, you stay with the practice, and the practice shows you your way of being in the practice, your way of holding it, your way of bowling the ball, your way of knitting, your way of carrying the presence. And in my case, learning how to carry the presence through musical improvisation, how to carry the presence through body movement, how to carry the presence through vocal chanting and toning, how to carry the presence through creative interaction in a social situation. So the way is being shown from within. I would say that my teachers are not in the dimensional realm. They're not interdimensional or hyperdimensional guides that operate through me because I have deliberately made myself available to the them that is the us, that is the we, that is the now. And as I talk about this, I'm still mindful that in the presence of my talking about this, there is the self that is, the collective self that is this only origin, only destination, the only home that allows the spirit to know, ah,
Do you think there is only one of everyone, even though there's this full interconnectedness and I am, that there's each with a purpose of their own?
yes, I have to allow for that. As a matter of fact, I consider that my caution to move with a sense of what I am knowing to be my truth, but with an openness to allow that, gee, everyone in this audience may be my teacher, and I'm the one here to learn. But, just allow the space for everyone to be, or as teachers have taught us, I've come here to show you what you already know, or to show you how I've learned to know what I already know in a way that might trigger you into finding your way into knowing what you already know.
What do you celebrate in life?
Good vegetarian pizza. I celebrate dance movement, celebrate the sun. I celebrate warm, nurturing rapport, connection, laughter, um, community. I think community might be one I'm growing more into, becoming more comfortable in celebrating a cosmic or celestial community born out of this sense of this eternal unity that exposed itself through me in this 1974 sound vision. That celebrating community through music, the music that acknowledges that the community is already here. If it's not well formed in your earth mind, Here's an image of it already in unobstructed flowing formlessness in the cosmic dimension. Celebrating the community as a community awareness. Uh, Celebrating uh, conscious communion with the divine. I hold that sacred. And in that, I allow for any seemingly otherness who is practicing their spiritual path or their religion to hold space for that and honor it as sacred. If that's what you're feeling, and this is where you are, I celebrate that place right where you are.
Do you seek out collaborators to make music with, or do you find that your work is a space for you to channel or perform?
I think, Emily, that I've unconsciously sought out collaborators. I say unconsciously because it seemed like I'm attracting collaborators now. People, the kind of music I do attracts people who say, hey, I could put a mean melody over that, or I wouldn't mind jamming with that kind of energy. I have a feeling that the music that I tend to bring forth demonstrates a lot of space, a lot of openness, a lot of freedom, which is attractive to artists who want to jam, want it's like an open welcome mat. At times I try to say that this welcome mat is supposed to stay open, and if too many musicians come into it, then so I
It
like,
gets a bit dense and
yeah. So feel the space, and I welcome the jam setup. So I've done a lot of jamming in the last month and a lot of solo work. So I don't seek anymore. I used to say, gee, I wouldn't mind performing with Miles Davis, or I wouldn't mind having that bass player being in a situation where I'm performing. I get so fulfilled with the music that I am able to transmit.
you are LARAAJI.
Yeah.
It would be a pleasure for everyone to collaborate with you.
Yes, and it is the truth. I've observed people do find a space within the collaboration zone that they're able to soar and trust and experiment and explore without judgment.
That's important. I have a final question for you. If you can share your thoughts on what do you feel or know or understand the composition of the sun to be?
Right now, I think I heard either helium or gases. That sun is a ball of gas, and that technically it is black, but the gases give the impression of sun colors. That the sun is an enormous orb that is fading because it's burning up. On the spiritual side, it's a spiritual energy being that is conscious in its own dimensional way. And on a higher dimensional realm, the sun doesn't exist, nor do we. That this is a unified feel, like a movie on a screen. The tree in the screen and the dog on the screen are not separate. They're all in the same field. So that my perception that in the physical dimension, it appears that the sun is miles away. And I'm impressed with that scientific statement because, as far as the sun seems to be from the earth, we somehow, traveling at the speed we're traveling, move around the sun. That means we're moving not around that distance of the radius, but the distance of the diameter and the circumference. So I am impressed with the speed at which the earth is traveling around the sun. At the same time, I'm aware that that the linear space is somehow an illusion that is realistic. that the sun does not exist separate from you or from me, but that the sun is existing within our simultaneous nowness. That's the extent that I've explored my understanding of the sun. That the sun can respond to my appreciation for it.
Maybe that's we've had some nice sunny days recently, and it's always very nourishing to feel the sun's rays on your skin, and maybe that's because it's awakening the sun within.
Yes, that goes along with mindfulness. I've been in situations where I have been filled with anxiety for being in the sun without some place to go and get shade. So handling the sun mindfully, that the sun is able to remain my friend. When the sun leaves, I know that it's hasn't left. It's just that the planet has rotated, and the moon reflects the sun, which is mystical to me. How the moon reflecting the sun can have an impact on us simply because it's reflecting sunlight. So that the sun has a way of staying present even on the earth is in the dark mode.
I've not thought of that before. The moon, I feel, is very powerful, but I've never thought about the sun still maintaining presence. While I'm very aware that the sun is shining on the moon, I've never thought about it as sunlight
Mhm.
reflecting back on us. So thank you for that. Well, you're very alive, and I think it's fulfilling for everyone to experience. I've been in your performances, like an audience, and it's a very unique experience and a privilege.
Mm.
Do you perform or feel you experience different sound channeling through different geographic locations?
Hmm. As I'm surveying, no, because my preparation for a performance involves connecting with a common denominator, the all pervading field. And coming into whether it's Italy, Milan, whether it's Brussels, whether it's Kyoto, or whether it's LA, I think the moment of the music transmission is determined, is guided through. And it's a bit of feeding the awakening cosmic community and pleasing the local emotional body, which seeks maybe relief from anxiety, relief from congestion, life, emotional, family congestion, personal problems. And so it's not me designing specifically for that place. I have a feeling it happens intuitively and cosmically. So my answer at the present time, I'm not consciously tailoring my concert for a specific location on the planet where I'm performing.
It's more universal than geomagnetic.
I like that word, geomagnetic. Whoa, yes, indeed. I've never played in Alaska or Antarctica or the North Pole, but maybe it would be a different channeling experience. But it would be essentially the same in the fact that it would be cosmically tailored for this moment of uniqueness in eternity.
I've really appreciated your sharing, LARAAJI, and I wish you well for your day and weeks and eternity ahead.
I feel it.
Thank you for listening to We Are Art People. You can listen to full episodes on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We are online at www.weareartpeople.com. Sign up to our newsletter for show updates and happenings, and please share with someone who may enjoy listening. See you next time.